Welcome to the Sip and Scale podcast, where we talk about everything business, entrepreneurship, and startups. My name is Blendi Muriqi. I'm the CEO and founder of Delegate.co. Each week, you'll join us as we talk with industry experts and business owners, sharing actionable insights to drive your business forward. So grab your favorite beverage and let's sip our way to success. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sip and Scale podcast. Today's guest is a powerhouse in the vacation rental space. Leslie Sonnier is here with us today. Her journey began by listing her own home on Airbnb, and through grit, vision, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, she built Vita Vacation Rentals into a 137 property empire. Her story is really a testament to the power of entrepreneurship, the impact of creating memorable guest experiences. It's a testament to her organization skills and her ability to bring really good people to her organization to build it up to the point of sale. I'm really excited to have her on board today to discuss how she went from starting with one property to eventually selling her property management company. I think as business owners, we all have this vision of someday selling our companies. I love bringing people onto the podcast that have actually been there and done that. We really value their input because it's a wealth of information they have to provide. So without further ado, Leslie, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here.
Well, I am excited to be here also, and I super love how you are already talking about my new vision of the new company that I'm creating right now that's called Vita Vacations. It was REBL Rentals is the one that I sold, but hey, I'm future pacing, not backwards pacing, so let's do it.
Awesome. So now I want to backtrack. Before we talk about Vita, I want to talk about, I think a lot of people that are watching this, they want to know, wait, so you're saying she took REBL from 0 to 137 properties in the span of how long?
9 years.
Wow.
The first two, it wasn't really a business. It was more doing it for fun. I still had another job. I was managing like family properties. So the first 2 years was like, I'm going to call it the nerdy years of, okay, if we added a hot tub to this 4-bedroom and not to this 4-bedroom, how long does it take to get your money back? And if we added a putting green to this property and not to this property, how long does it take to get your money back? So investor centric, I guess you can say. And after 2 years of collecting data and also getting to a point of like, man, I have two full-time jobs managing 5 properties. And my other, I got to pick one and run with it. So it was year 2 out of 9 that I truly made it a business, if that makes sense.
And I'm sure, like many people, the first thing you think of, well, the first thing you don't think of is like, how do I sell this property management company? I'm sure that came down the road.
Yep.
It may have been in the back of your head,
Sure.
But like, tell me about that scaling of the property management company. I mean, a lot of people that watch our podcast, they're in the short-term rental space, and they might be at 5 properties, but they never thought about ever selling. So
Sure.
what did that look like over a span of 9 years? Scaling it up?
I would say the biggest learning curve is going from 0 or 1 property to 10 properties, especially these days. And really back then, we didn't have a lot of technology that you guys have these days. So a lot of it was, hey, we're doing Excel spreadsheets to do our cleaning schedule. And again, that learning curve of getting to 10 properties, that was the most challenging and the most expensive, where I learned the most mistakes. Going from, once I decided to, hey, I'm going to quit my job and take this thing as a full-time business, I just did the math in my head of, hey, how much money would I be making on property management fees and just straight property management fees to replace my $250,000 a year income I was making at the time. And the number I allegedly, originally not understanding startup costs as a business, thought like, okay, well, if I get to 25 properties in a year from 5, then that'll replace my income. And so that was my goal. And I got to 35 properties my first year. Again, not really understanding a ton about the industry and scale, but I was also working some crazy hours. So I'm not necessarily saying I recommend that fast of growth without back end support like I did it, but it's doable. It's doable for sure. When you set out to a heart space of like, man, if I'm impacting this many guests with 5 properties, imagine how many guests I'll be impacting if I'm able to do it for 25 properties and 35 properties. Again, mine was more built on excitement in the beginning than how do you create a business. And so that's I'm sure you're going to ask more questions there if you want me to head into that space.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to know is one of the biggest mistakes that's made early on is like going after low hanging fruit when it comes to bringing inventory in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in your case, you added many properties in a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of the properties that you added were not like, you later learned like it's okay to be choosy with the
Mm-hmm.
owners, the properties that you bring on board. And I've seen this time and time again with property managers where they'll scale, and like early on they'll like, someone approaches them that's an owner like, hey, can you take on my property? And you're like, yes, growth.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
you
Yay.
realize it's not the right kind of growth because some owners and some properties just don't meet the long-term vision of what you're trying to build.
Yep. And this is jumping a little bit ahead to further discussion. But if you know exactly what you said, if I can give any kind of advice whatsoever for someone who's in that 0 to 10 properties or 1 to 10 properties, or like, hey, I think this business could be a lot of fun, is treating it like a business in the very first space, not waiting until you're overwhelmed and whatever in your learning curve to say like, what are my major proponent of figuring out what's my mission? Okay, what am I out to create for the world? What's my vision? What's my core value set? I believe that people can add to your core value set. They can't take anything away. And when I look at the amount of money that was lost of hiring the wrong person, okay, or partnering with a homeowner that didn't have the same core value set that I did, they're the ones that dropped off. Had I had those set from the beginning and I knew my boundaries, obviously you're not going to be able to pick 100%. But man, if you just know those going in, when you're having conversations with homeowners of like what integrity means to you and asking them what integrity means to them, as an example, you'll be able to see the people that you want to work with versus the people you don't want to work with. This is a people business. So if you're centered in tech, but don't like the people side, you may want to partner with someone who's in the people side. That's a people business that's powered by technology, as an example. So that's kind of my initial words of advice. And I'm so much of a proponent of it that I've partnered with the person that helped me create that 7 years into the business, by the way. Okay. Not year 1, year 7, where I'm like, I'm pulling my hair out and I'm hiring people and they're not working out and I can't figure out why.
Yeah.
I know I need to have a better structure. I didn't do that until year 7. Holy moly, if people can do that when they're just starting out. Okay. I partnered with someone who that's what her background is, working with other amazing people to help people figure out what your mission, vision, values, core value set. To make it so that you have the baseline to really create a business this day and age. It's not 2014 anymore when it was the wild, wild west. Vacation rentals, there's lots more professionals in there. So you got to come in being very professional, even if you're trying to be a boutique company.
Yeah, especially if the end goal is to sell it. But one interesting thing that this is the first time I'm hearing this is applying those core values to how you partner with owners. Because oftentimes when companies and organizations talk about bringing people into the fold and making sure that their values, their own personal values, align with their employees, like that's the conversation that's usually had.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time I'm hearing from another property manager where it's not just about your employees, it's also the homeowners that you're representing and that you're working with. I think that a lot of times the headaches that are involved in this type of industry come from a mismatch of values between homeowner and property manager. So if you get that right from the get-go, it makes not only operating the business easier, it makes scaling the business a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I started to realize that again towards the end before I was selling. But the next go round, it's going to be a conversation that I'm going to teach people to have with their homeowners because, as an example, okay, one of my core values is generosity. Okay, it's the G to my give, which has an acronym for each one. Okay. I want to partner with people who are partner with, when I say homeowners, with homeowners who, if I say, hey, uh, we had a situation where they came into the property and something that was an uncontrollable, that the last guest broke a couch. I don't know. I'm doing this off the top
Yeah.
of my head, by the way. This may be a crappy example.
Well, that
They broke the
happens
couch.
often.
Okay.
So
Which, yeah, right. And it's going to take a day for us to get a new couch in there. Okay. Because it's a check in, check out situation.
yeah,
I want the homeowner to be on my same page in the space of generosity of like, hey, I'm going to give them some money back because this is an uncontrollable circumstance. But the guest needs a couch. They have 13 bachelorettes that are here and they were
yeah,
planning on having wine and cheese around the living room area. They're not able to do that anymore. They have to go to a bar to have that experience. So we're going to contribute $100 towards their bar tab. I want to have a homeowner be on the same page with me because that type of $100 situation, it can happen a lot in our business because we're hospitality and turning these things really quickly, right? To where, hey, I'm going to put up $50. Would you be willing to put up $50 too? Well, you do that times 100 in a year. That's a lot of money that if you're paying for all of it and you have a homeowner who's like, I'm not paying for that. That's your fault. It's like, I just need somebody to work with me here, right? So that's a
how do
silly
you
example
determine that?
that happens a lot.
How do you determine that? Like, so there's two things. Number one is like from a sales perspective, how do you balance selling, owner acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
with the second part of that was with which is bringing someone on board that shares that mindset.
Mm-hmm. I believe it would attract someone. Okay. If I put my Leslie investor hat on, okay, which by the way, if you're listening to a podcast, you would not see that I just pretended like I put a hat on because you're in your car right now. So that looks really silly if you're not. I just put my physical investor hat on. Okay. If I'm Leslie investor hat and I say, hey, there's 20 property managers in the greater Phoenix area. Which one do I choose? Where do I go? Okay. I will tell you personally, if a property manager from the get-go says, hey, just to let you know, this is how we operate our company. I operate on this core value set. Okay. Generosity. Here's what it means to me. Inspiration. We're here inspiring guests to do really cool stuff and have so much fun at your property by providing concierge services. See, I'm putting in a benefit in there, but I'm tying it to my core value, right? But having concierge provided to every guest that comes to stay with us, so that when you get repeat business, you make more money, we make more money. Okay. Vitality. We're bringing vitality back to hospitality. Did you know, homeowner, that Marriott just laid off a gigantic number of concierge in the industry? It's not just vacation rentals that don't have concierge anymore. It's the industry of hospitality. So what's really important to us is that we bring vitality back to hospitality, so that you get the best experience, we get the best experience. You kind of see what I'm saying? Like if you're in your pitch, okay, because I guarantee you, not many people have in their pitch their core values. That's going to set you apart over everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Set you apart and also set expectations. Like when
Yep. Yeah,
it's
sometimes we're
like
going to give guest refunds, right? Like, please understand though, because it comes out of my revenue too. If we give a
yeah,
guest refund, there's a really good reason out of space of generosity because something went wrong. Like you
yeah.
need to understand where we're coming from because we want to do what's best for the guests. And sometimes that does mean giving them a discount.
How do you then in a way you have to also interview because it's a two-way street. So when you're talking to owners, you have to interview them in a way and see, well, what are their core values and what are they trying to get out of it? Is that like a direct line of questioning that you ask them? Like, okay, what are your priorities with this property? What are you
Sure.
trying to get
Yeah.
from this property? Are you all in for the money or are you all in for
Yeah.
providing
That's your curve.
fabulous
Yeah.
guest
That's interesting.
experiences?
I will be super frank and with integrity say that in the previous business, we didn't ask as many of those questions, but now we're having this conversation. I'm absolutely going to implement it into the new line of questions just to make sure that we're in alignment. Previously, it was a little bit kind of what your original question was. Yeah, in the beginning, I'd take somebody with a breath and a condo. Sure, I'll rent out Super Bowl for you, right?
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't take that on, right? Like I
No.
wouldn't take some, if I can't get 80% of a calendar, it's not financially worth it for our company to manage, right? And even condos, it's just almost just as much work managing a condo than it is a house. There's some idiosyncrasies, but man, I'm going to be more pulled towards managing a house than I am a condo, just from a revenue standpoint, for their sake and for our sake, honestly. Because if we're
Yeah.
investor return basic, I'm not doing them a service, because their net profit is not going to be I'm just saying in my area, I'm not saying everywhere. I'm just saying in my area, the net profit for a condo isn't as great as a house. And so that's
To be honest, like knowing most markets and working with clients in markets across the United States,
Mhm.
it's a fact that condos are an underperforming asset compared to houses.
Mhm.
And where it does work out, though, I think, is if you take on a whole building, right? And I've
Yes.
seen
Yeah.
property
Yeah. Scale,
managers there,
right?
but at scale,
Absolutely.
yeah, at scale, it makes sense because then you can have
Yeah.
your
And you're
team
competing
in the
against
same
Marriott
place.
Hotel that's next door, and you happen to be in a great location, so people are going to get a 2-bedroom condo for the price of a Marriott hotel. Yeah, that could make sense for sure. We didn't manage that. That's not to say that's not a great business model. I'd be open in a new business model to entertain that conversation if we got the entire building, but otherwise,
Yeah,
probably not worth it.
definitely. So I want to touch on the role of delegation in scaling your business, scaling
Mhm.
REBL to a point of acquisition.
Mhm.
What were some of the mistakes that you made early on when you were scaling, when you started out doing everything yourself? At what
Mhm.
point did you realize, okay, I need to start delegating because I'm taking on too much at once?
Mhm. Yeah. Man, the journey, that's a fun conversation, and some heartache is in that, and also so a lot of really big wins. Again, in the beginning, it was, I can do it better than anybody else that I hire. What that means is that I had a problem with teaching and coaching. Okay. So in the beginning, it was, I didn't have time to teach and coach because I couldn't imagine not working 80 hours a week. So it was a mindset shift that had to happen first. Okay, in order for me to have a sellable business. Okay. So 7 years in, I actually had a physical thing happen of, I became a single mom overnight. COVID happened and I opened a bed and breakfast all in 1 month. And it was one of those like, holy, and I didn't have a director of operations. I had about 50 properties at the time.
Oh my
And I
God.
had been entertaining a director of operations and saying like, man, I really want you and I think I need you, but I'm not willing to pay your 80 grand a year, or I'm not able to pay 80 grand a year in order to offload what I didn't even know that I didn't know would have been offloaded off my plate. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
sometimes it's a, man, if you don't know what you don't know, okay, entering into that space can be really scary. But I tell you got to do it. If you want to have a business, okay, you have a job. I had a job until 7 years into the business. Okay. I didn't have a business until I started delegating. So which game do you want to play? You want to play the job game? You want to play the business game? I want to play the business game. Okay. And so that's what this podcast is all about, which is so flipping cool, by the way,
yeah.
is like, okay, don't make the 7 year mistakes of what I did. Goodness gracious, the
Wow.
burnout and a divorce and a whatever, like, don't make those mistakes. Don't get there. But it's easy to get there if you're not willing to delegate.
That's
So is it
profound.
7 years when those three things happen? Okay. When those three things happen, very short period of time, lost $1 million in reservations in one day. When COVID hit, $500,000 in reservations the second day. That was real. Okay. I'm sitting here trying to chase a toddler and trying to save reservations. That was the only one who could do it the best, right? Idiot. It was a physical thing that happened to me that was like, I have to have a director of operations. I have to unload this. And thank goodness, said director of operations, Hans Schmidt, who is amazing and incredible. So I got the gift of Hans and worked out a payment plan to get to that 80 grand a year, which he more than deserved. And man, once you do it the first time though, and you realize, oh, my brain, body, soul is not an operator. Like, can I do operations? Obviously, I got to 50 properties doing it this way.
Yeah.
But is that my gift? No, it's not my gift. And that's okay. And holy cow, not only did he take that load off my plate, but he did it 10 times better, which enabled the business to grow a little bit more. Okay. And with that growth, okay, he paid for himself, right?
Yeah.
I was able to do my best, which is get out and talk to people. Right. Go ahead.
So this is actually, first of all, very profound right there. 7 years you had a job until you realized then you needed to delegate in order to actually have a business for yourself. That's very profound. The second thing is, I seemingly you learned with that first director of operations manager, you brought on someone, and it wasn't just for the low-lying tasks, right, within your organization. It was actually to like steer the boat. And I think a lot of business
I like
owners,
that. Steer the boat.
they steer the
Yeah.
boat. They don't realize they have to do that until very late into the business, because they think that only they can do it. Like, they're
Mhm.
who can do this business better than I can, because I started it.
Yep.
And when you realize that you have to bring people to steer the boat, even if I bring up Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, even if someone does it 80% as good as you, 80% is 100% better.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and so in your case, you really took someone on that can steer the boat. And from there, you realized, oh my God, when I hire someone, I can hire someone that can do a better job than even I can.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and that's before predictive index and all of the knowing about predictive index and knowing about other companies out there like yourself that they can help you hire the right people. Okay, man, if I can hand off my core values to someone and you help with the filtering people, right? And say, hey, someone who's not in alignment with my core values probably won't press the interview button, is my guess,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, I'm going to have more of a conversation with them, but there's amazing companies like yours that assist in that process that I didn't have. It was just, who do I know? Word of
Yeah.
mouth, Anyway, that's just a
I
testament.
learned very early on, kind of the hiring process, because in the beginning, when I first started Delegate, I thought of our process as one-sided, where our goal is to only look at what the talent is, the people that we're hiring, what their qualities are, what their core values were. But we then realized that we have to pay attention just as much on the core values and the management style of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could find a really good, whether it's a customer service representative, a marketing manager, a sales rep, you could find someone that's really good. But if their values and their style is different than the business owner, and
Right.
there's a
Yeah,
mismatch there,
sure.
you're screwed.
Sure. They could align with your core values, but that doesn't mean they align with the business owners. In your client, you have two clients, right? You have the people that you're trying to hire for them, but your client is a business owner, right? So you have to understand
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
For sure.
So there are business owners out there that they have just a money first approach, right,
Mm-hmm.
to everything. And then there are business owners where they're extreme micromanagers. So it's super important
And there was
as
that.
I'm when it comes to different clients, like, there's so many different personalities there, and our job is to find the personalities that mesh together. So like, in your case, you meshed very well with your operations director from the get-go. That's what really jump started your business, or took it to the stratosphere.
Yep. And really, that's what once that happened and I saw how much of a relief it was, it's the next was like, what else can I delegate? What else can I delegate? What else can I delegate? Right.
Yeah.
And that's a very possible. Okay. That's a very possible. I'm sharing this with everybody out there who's like, I don't know how to delegate. Where do I begin? It's a possibility that you can get to that level pretty quickly once you realize how much easier and better somebody else can run a piece of the business. It's not your gift, so that you can do the more enjoyable parts. Like, if your vision is to do the more enjoyable parts of the business, I mean, you're gonna have to jump back into the other pieces you didn't like every once in a while, and by team meetings and stuff like that. But if it's a splash of your day as opposed to your everyday and always what you're thinking about, then I mean, that's just a gift to your soul, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
make this business a gift to your soul, not just to, like you said, the money side.
Yeah. Once you started delegating, what parts of the business did you focus all your energy on? Like the things that you love about your business? What was your main kind of driver on a daily basis?
One piece that I found out is a gift that I did not realize was a gift until I had my top three, I call them, okay, hired under me, which was director of operations, which is Hans. My director of sales, that was probably the hardest one to give up. So I knew I had to find someone who was equally as good at sales as I did.
Mm,
You don't know this about me, but I sold educational books door to door in college, one of the oldest door to door sales companies that exist. And man, if you want to grit your teeth in sales as a college, if you have college kids that are listening to this, absolutely go and sign up. You'll learn more about yourself and more about life and more about business doing that than anything else that you could do. So I knew I had to find a book person. I knew I had to find somebody who had that same sales background to be on my team. And I found Matt Patton, who was a rock star at adding properties. Also helped build a real estate team, which is really cool. So another arm of the business that not a lot have out there, but we figured out how to monetize it and figured out how to monetize the concierge side too, which not many people do. And then from there, he was growing so fast. We're like, oh my gosh, we need a director of onboarding because we're onboarding 10 properties a month. Hans can't do it. He's trying to hire cleaners and
yeah.
landscapers and whatever, right? So the third and last amazing piece was Jeff Gibb, who came in as the director of onboarding, and he took over the design company. So we had a real estate company, a design company, and a property management company all together wrapped into one. And he was in charge of the design company, which is in essence our onboarding arm of the business. If that's his sole and one purpose, right, is project management. That's his gift. Okay. We have Matt, who's a rock star going and getting properties and creating relationships. And we have Hans, who's the back end, that's a rock star making sure that, hey, when landscapers every 6 months don't show up, we got to find another landscaper. He's doing that stuff because guests are going to be pissed if they show up to weeds growing to high heaven, right?
Yeah.
So it's all three of them had to work together. And frankly, when I got to that point, there was a 1 year period that I was working 25, 30 hours a week, and they were taking care of all of it. And the real estate team was rocking and rolling. And it was just an easy flow business. And really, okay, I didn't realize this until I went to go sell the company. This is something for everybody to know. Okay. Do not start a business unless you think that you're going to want to sell it one day. Okay. Yes, you can have the vision of this is my lifestyle business. I'm going to be 80 years old taking care of guests and homeowners and stuff. Don't do that. Okay. Start the business with the end in mind. Okay. Start the business with, okay, if I want to exit in 5 years or if I want to exit in 10 years, what's my goal? What's my vision? Have something from the get go. Okay. Because what I found out is that I did not have a sellable business 7 years into the business. I didn't know that because I was the job. They would be buying me. They would have to have me for 5 years to be able to do that. That doesn't make sense, right? I only had a sellable business 2 years after that, after I had my 3 rungs of Hans, Jeff, Matt, right? That's the only way. That was the number one thing that they said when I was going to sell the business is if you walked away, who's running the show? Number one question, every company. And I don't think that I would have had 3 offers pretty quickly if I didn't have those 3 people. In fact, I know that I wouldn't have, is what my
Yeah.
business broker said. So it's, again, if you want a job, you want a business. You want something to sell later on for big X's, big multiples, big X's. Or do you want to have a job where you're just going to keep on doing the job until you say, I'm tired of the job? Your choice. Got to delegate.
Interesting. Now, I'm sure like when any sort of private equity firm, larger PM are looking to purchase another property management company, they're also looking to see if those key figures leave tomorrow, are there procedures, SOPs in place? Is there a funnel in place to actually bring on replacements? Like, will the engine run without these people? And I think like that the biggest mistake businesses make is they don't have the engine in the background running in the event that certain talent leaves and whatnot. I mean,
Yep.
it's one thing for the CEO to be guiding the ship, but you also need contingency plans if other people within the organization
That's
leave.
interesting. Yep.
So in your case, did you have standard operating procedures in place when you sold the company or at least approached your business broker? What infrastructure did you have to put in place to make sure that the business is sellable?
I will say, here's something that you're going to like about me, I think, or not like about me, but I'm conservative to a fault, but I'm also like integrity to a fault. And hey, there's better ways to do this business that I did not do. And the one space that we only started truly working on writing out our systems and processes was in the last year. And I kind of handed it off to the top three and didn't do a lot of checks and balances. That's one key element we probably talk about in an entire podcast is the checks and balances when you start delegating and how powerful that could be. So that's something that I did not do as good of a job that I will do the second time around. We honestly did not, because again, I started this as this is going to be fun to manage guests and to go make people have fun and vacations. Yay, vacations.
Fun at 10 properties. It's not as fun at 100.
Yes. So
if you're doing it all yourself.
I would say next time around, because it did happen that my top three chose to not stay with the new company after a period of time, and it lost the heart of the business. And that's really sad, right? It lost the heart of the business. And I think had I had better standard operating procedures, which they knew that I didn't have those, it's not like that was a mystery. It was a box that I gave them. It was like, that's it. I was like, yeah, sorry, that's it. Sorry, that's all we got. The business would have been worth more money and it would have been more sustainable had we had better procedures or the why behind why we did things, because we operated in a very unique way where, like, as an example, okay, our home inspectors were our real estate agents, because I was tired of having to hire more and more inspectors at $12 to $15 an hour who never owned a home. So asking them to do quality assurance when most of them didn't even own a home, that's tough for people to have your vision of what excellence looks like when they don't have that innately in there. Does that make sense? As general, so like, how do I make my lowest paid employees my highest paid employees? Okay. And how I did that was making them part of my real estate team. So that's just an example. Well, I haven't heard so far anybody else yet who did a structure like that. Man, that needed to be in writing.
Well,
and the why.
It's a great incentive.
Why behind the how-to, right? Because the first thing they did was they let go of a lot of the real estate team, because they're like, we can get inspectors for $12 to $15 an hour. They didn't understand the why behind the how-to, but that's my fault. That's my fault in business, because I could have taught that, like, hey, here's the math. Here's how you're going to make more money, how they're going to make more money, how everybody wins, because it was such a unique value proposition. I wish that I would have done a better job at, like, hey, you got to understand this. Like, you really got to your team has to understand this, because this can be a really profitable side of your business. That's just an example of where SOPs would have made a difference, I think, for the next company who took over.
Yeah, definitely. I've never heard of actually using the real estate agents for the home inspections, and it makes sense. The other thing is real estate agents are getting paid on commissions, right? So if they have a stream of revenue coming in from the home inspections, I don't know how you structured that, but it seems
mainly
like
from concierge. So they were the concierge, they were the real estate team, and they were the structure was they can make more money by selling concierge services, and from those guests is where they got their leads. So that was their lead management system too, to saying, like, hey, looks like you're coming to drop your kid off from Colorado at ASU. You're going to be here for the next 4 years. How many times a year? Oh, 4, because you're going to miss them. Yeah, that makes sense. So why don't you own those come to visit your kiddos versus renting those come to visit your kiddo that you miss? Just as an easy example of the way that we structured it. But
have you had situations where, like, someone stayed in a property, let's say, and then they purchased the property?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yep. Not because of our system, but that was 2 years of trial and error to figure that system out. Does that make sense? So that wasn't an overnight thing. That was how do we market? What do we say? How do we say it? Yeah, that's our system that we created to make the business more money.
Nice. One thing, this is kind of going into the nitty gritty of property management, but how did your streams of revenue change within, like, the last few years of operating the business? Because when you're trying to sell a business, one thing any private equity firm, any other acquirer will look at is like diversification of revenue streams, not just relying on one. But did you have to change up different services that you provide in the last few years just to make the value of your company higher?
I didn't do it intentionally because, again, I really didn't make the decision to sell until about 6 months prior to selling because of three uncontrollable things. I was back to working 80 hours a week, frankly, knowing what I know now. And I did not realize this, but if you get to like 300 properties under management, you can go to a higher multiple. I did not know that, or else I would have been like, okay, Leslie, suck it up, buttercup, and get through this time and then don't sell. Here nor there. Hindsight's 2020. I've had 2 years of amazing time with my son, which has been awesome. But what was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, basically on the revenue stream side,
revenue streams. Got it.
You have different property managers. They'll say, okay, well, we're going to implement these concierge fees. We're going to upsell this. We're going to, I mean, in your case, there's the real estate arm of business. Was that an intentional pivot, or was it something that just naturally happened?
It was an intentional pivot because I was trying to solve. So creative problem solving, that's what came out of delegation. One thing that I would say is a major gift of mine, which I did not realize until I had, again, the three arms that are coming out on a once a week conference call, right? Of like, what are your wins for the week? And what are the things that you could have help on? And then all of us together would brainstorm on creative problem solving. And I would say a gift of mine that I would not have figured out is, and another motivation for delegation is figuring out what is that like cool thing that you can do that's like gives you a lot of juice when it's done. For me, it's creative problem solving. And that gives me a lot of juice and is really awesome because it helped the team, but I could just focus on that as opposed to going and fixing the leak in a property. I mean, the nitty gritty is like
the nitty gritty ops.
Yeah, the nitty gritty ops. Exactly. Creating the real estate team, that vision came from solving problems. It was, hey, my concierge right now is a cost. I have a cost center for concierge. It's not a revenue generating entity. Okay. I have inspectors that I'm spending so much time hiring and rehiring and rehiring and rehiring. Like, how do I solve for the rehire, which helped a little bit when I did the core value exercise. And part of generosity is like, I want to pay people a lot of money. So how do I make it so I can pay people what I think that they're worth? I didn't find this out till later, but I pay my staff a lot more than a lot of people in town. I have zero regrets on that, right? But in order to pay for their worth, I guess you can say, I had to do a restructure. And that's where the idea of the real estate agent, concierge, owner liaison, inspector came about. So it really was birthed out of, hey, how do I solve as many of these problems in one? And it was the best solution to do so.
Yeah. That's very intelligent of you to ask yourself, how can I bring revenue from a cost center?
Yep.
I think one thing at our company that we got the idea from a really great business leader, Alex. He's scaled like his businesses to $100 million. Nice. Sold his company for $50 million a few years ago. Yeah. And one thing he said is like, when you're onboarding a new client, they obviously have your trust. Otherwise they wouldn't be with you. So use that goodwill in the beginning and offer them. The customer onboarding it's a cost center because you have to have a representative actually onboard someone. Okay. How do you turn that cost center into a revenue driver? And he came up with this brilliant model. You have all these partners software that you have to use when you're onboarding. That's a great opportunity to just be like, hey, you're working with us. Well, in order to work with us, here are some tools that we definitely recommend you bringing on. And that's just all affiliate money that you could be bringing in passively. And now that cost center, which was onboarding, becomes a profit center.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'll use stealing that one using the new business model. Holler.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I want to pivot to now your new business. You sold your property management company. You sold REBL, and now you're working on a new concept of property management, what's called fractional delegation, if you will.
Fractional
Um,
delegation. Yep.
Tell me about this new model
Mm-hmm.
and how it's going to help short-term rental operators without help them grow without actually burning out the way you
Yes,
did.
yes, exactly. Like I said, if I didn't have those three uncontrollable circumstances that happened to me, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have sold. And again, no regrets, but and really, I don't think this avenue exists, but we're going to check it out and try it. So let's see. This is part of creative problem solving. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've identified in the market, okay, people who are like myself between 50 and 150 properties where to hire the best of the best is very expensive. You have 3 people on your staff who make over 100 grand a year, that cuts into your bottom line. But you need those people in order to grow and scale and have a life, basically. Okay. But I know when I got to over 25 properties, that's when I had to hire people. I had to start replicating myself. Not that I did it well in the beginning, but I had to hire assistants and concierge and things like that to run it the way that I wanted it to be run. And my standard, okay, the Leslie essence started to fade after I hired more people, especially before I did the core value exercise. So you also have a group of people, because I've gotten quite a few calls in the last 2 years of my best friend of a friend is starting an Airbnb business. Can you help them out and tell them everything you know in an hour? And I'm like, I can give them an hour, but they're going to have 1,000 more questions and 50, right? So there's another group of people who are like, hey, I can do this better than my property manager. Okay. I'm tired of being just a number because now there's venture capital and people are one of 1,000 people under management. It's no longer, you know who Leslie is. You're just a number, right? Yeah. So how do we help the eager beavers in the industry, which we need fresh people, fresh blood, fresh excitement coming into the industry? How do I help both at the same time? Okay. So the idea is, let's say you have a property management company A who's managing about 100 properties. They can't afford a revenue manager. They already have a director of operations that they can't afford, I don't know, a revenue manager too. Okay. So there's 2 people that are key to be able to scale. Okay. 2 people that are needed in order to compete with the big dogs that are out there. Okay. And I said, okay, what if you offload 50 year properties? You get to a position where you have a manageable portfolio. Pick your favorite staff member. Okay. Potentially I'll hire one of your staff members to help other people too. So again, it's the idea of fractional sharing. Okay. Yeah. So I'm offloading properties, offloading them to the idea is to sell in packages of 10. Okay. So the hardest learning curve, in my opinion, is getting from 1 property to 10 properties, like I mentioned earlier in the conversation. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that learning curve, the hardest learning curve, which is where most people fail, okay, is I'm going to let people bypass that. Okay. I'm going to teach you the things that got you there and stuff like that through Vita tools. Okay. So Vita Vacations is the company. That's the incubator company. That's the house. Okay. Which houses the director of operations, director of onboarding, director of revenue management, off hours guest communication, trust accounting. Okay. They have all the things that you need in order to operate professionally, but you still get a boutique company because you're fractionally sharing in each of these very expensive people. Resources. Okay. Yeah. So you're paying for that service for your 10. Okay. You're paying for that service for your 20. So the goal is, man, I'm going to offload so much off of your plate that I wish that I had or could afford back then. I just get to teach you how to do the best concierge for your guests ever. Okay. I get to teach you how to have the best customer service for your homeowners where they know who you are. Okay. So vitality back to hospitality for both arms, guests and homeowners. Okay. I'm going to teach you how to get to 20, but then instead of 2025, but instead of having to hire 1 or 2 or 3 people to get to 50, I'm going to teach you how to sell that. So you're going to get cash. Okay. Yep. I'm going to teach you how to sell those 10 to somebody else and then rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. So no longer will there be homeowners who are one of 1,000. Okay. They're all going to be, all these mini business owners are going to be powered by Vita Vacations, powered by our managed services and our tech stack, the best tech stack in the industry. Okay. But then they'll also be able to leverage the experience of 40 years of combined experience, basically, but still stay small, still stay boutique, which I think is the call of the industry right now. That's what my gut says. That's what my heart says. So yeah, that's the idea in a nutshell.
I love it. It's a hybrid model of a franchise with a lot more flexibility on the operator side.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the biggest key, because I've done a ton of research into licensing versus franchise. With a license, you get to, as a business in a box owner, you get to have your own mission, vision, values, core principles of success. Okay. You get to have your own brand, your own essence, because really that to me, yeah, you can have the Leslie essence, but the Blendi essence is you, right? You're the one who's doing the really cool stuff for the guests and the homeowners, right? So letting you have your own brand and your own creative freedom in that respect. We're going to teach you and guide you along the process to do that in our proven model, but you get to have that on your own. It is yours. You just get to tap into the toolbox, I guess you could say.
That's fantastic. Now, let's say down the road, someone wants to sell this. What is the attractiveness of selling a property management company, like a small PM, for example? Is it just as attractive if it's being sold with call it this fractional delegation model? Like, would a private equity firm tomorrow say, well, I see that, tell me about your team. Well, my team is fractional in nature. Does it have any effect? Is it still the same? Would it still get the same valuation?
Yeah. So that's something that I'm actually working through in the thought process of like, okay, so what if we now have 100 people who manage 10 properties? That's now 1,000, and that's over that 300 threshold. Or is there a way for us to maybe put all of our properties combined and get a higher X? I'm still working that through, to be honest with you. So I'm probably going to just table that conversation. But I think there could be something there of like, look, okay, let's say that we get an offer from a company to say, hey, I don't want but I would imagine that the company, the person who would purchase or invest in, I can imagine it being more like an investment in the vehicle. Because we still want the essence of the people that stick around. I don't know. I'm still working that one out, to be honest with you. So if you have any ideas, let me know, everyone listening. I would love to hear your thoughts.
It sounds like I call that a
delegation. I'm delegating this, let's solve this problem.
Crowdsource.
I'm delegating it to y'all.
Crowdsource the advice in the comments section.
Yes. Please.
I love that. In terms of kind of your next steps with this fractional delegation, who is your most ideal persona that right now that you would want to approach or speak to if someone's watching?
Yes. So if you are in the category of burnt out property manager, you're in that 50 to 150, you're like, man, it would be nice to go back down to this, have a little bit more have cash in my pocket because I'm selling off a part of my portfolio, but you're not ready to exit completely. That would be a really great referral for me right now. And then in addition, if you are a tech company that, again, I've kind of been out of the conversation for 2 years. So there's some really cool stuff that is out there that wasn't out there before. And a lot of you guys have upgraded your services, which is awesome. So I still haven't finalized the complete tech stack. And it's anybody who's listening who's like, oh, I have a friend who has talked about getting into the vacation rental business, or you already are self-managing. If you're already self-managing, you're a great person for me to talk to, because we're going to get you the tools and the income. Because right away when you close, you have 10 properties that are making money. They have future reservations, like you're cash flowing right away, right? The getting to the 10, which is the pain process, I'm just going to take that away from you. If you manage 5 and you're like, look, I'll take another 10, then I only have to get 5 more properties to be able to sell part of it, right? Like that's a great target market for us right now. Someone who likes the idea of scaling sales, relationship management, who has that type of persona is the people that we're looking for.
There's plenty of people out there that are in that position. And
Arizona,
I think a lot
at first, but it will expand to outside of that after that.
Yeah. And Arizona is a huge market as well. So
absolutely.
It's a perfect place to start this up.
It is. Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Leslie, I would really appreciate having you on today. It's been a great conversation. I wish you best of luck. To everyone watching, thank you again for joining us for the Sip and Scale podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.